So Red Hook, I want to tell you a little bit about the context that we're working in. We have a two-pronged mission. One is to work with young people in an empowerment model so that we are building this core of green leaders and land stewards. And the other part of our mission is to feed our neighborhood. And it's important to know a little bit about Red Hook. It was a port community. There used to be, when the ports were more active on that side of Brooklyn, a lot of the workers lived in Red Hook. And Red Hook is actually home to the second largest public housing development in New York City. The largest one in Brooklyn is called Red Hook Houses. The official numbers put it at 65% of the neighborhood. The unofficial numbers is much higher. So, you know, NYCHA thinks 7,000 people live there. 7,000 people live in the building that is adjacent to the farm. You know, so thinking about the majority of who live and works there. You might also know that Red Hook has been experiencing a wave of gentrification. And so there are luxury buildings all over the place that they can't fill yet, but they're still building them. And so we'll come to that contradiction later in talking about a neighborhood below sea level that is actually very expensive to live in. But you know what, I'm going to get so distracted. Let's see. These photos. The best of. So I want to tell you about the farms. Click on this and then I drag it.
Yeah, you drag it over.
Oh, there it is. There it is. So this is the Red Hook Community Farm. It is the largest urban farm in Brooklyn. It's 2.75 acres. We share it with the New York City Compost Project. So we have about 200 tons of food waste that's being processed on one side of the farm. And between this farm and the second farm, which I'll tell you about in a moment, we are growing about 20,000 pounds of produce. That's a lot of vegetables. And who's doing it? As I said, it is a youth empowerment program. And, oh wait, let me tell you about the Nafici farm. So we have two farm sites. The second farm site, the second farm site is actually located in that housing development I mentioned, in Red Hook Houses on the west side. It was a partnership between Added Value, NYCHA, and an organization called Green City Forest, which hires young people who live in NYCHA developments. That's an acre farm. So between these two farm sites, we're growing a lot of vegetables, and you might ask, well, does Red Hook really need all these different types of vegetable farms? Because you have Fairway, and down the road is Whole Foods. And you're laughing, but we get a little bit of pushback sometimes around calling our neighborhood a food desert. But the houses have a lot of our pharmacies. Plenty of pharmacies to get your diabetes drugs, your heart disease drugs. That is the most access that our community has in Red Hook, our neighbors have, is to pharmaceuticals. But if you ask residents, have you been to Fairway? That's like another. That's in the front, in the back. Like it's another part of the neighborhood, and it's not. Besides jobs, and I'll give Fairway credit where it's due. They do hire people in the neighborhood, but that is not where people are shopping. And Whole Foods is another thing. We did a community survey a couple years ago, and about 60% of those that we surveyed said they do leave the neighborhood to get their produce. And so what does that mean for a community that is already poor? To pay for that car, to pay for that time, to make those trips. So we have two farms, the NYCHA farm, we have the Red Hook Community Farm, and who is running those farms are these. Yeah, they are our garlic harvest. So we hire young people, 14 to 19. We pay them for every minute that they're there. We have farm interns, senior apprentices, farm apprentices, so a tiered program. So they're learning all the agricultural skills, the horticultural skills, how to sow the seeds, how to harvest, how to water, how to do pest management. The farm stands are run by our young people. But also we know that we're not going to be growing this new crop growth. They're not all going to go into farming. Probably none of them are going to go into farming. And that's another thing we hear a lot, like how what percentage of your alumni are farmers? It doesn't matter. What percentage of our young people know where their food comes from? Understands what food justice looks like, can map their neighborhood and the resources in their neighborhood and think about what they can do about it and feel that connection to the community. So we see the farm as a vehicle for youth empowerment and as a vehicle for community engagement, in addition to growing all this amazing food. We are hyper-local. You know, I said that we hire young people, just gotta see this. Eddie and Andrew. We hire young people, seed to sale. There's two more. But we're not insulated from the national politics, so a little bit of an example of that. We have a new farm stand over by the Mikio, it's the community center. If you were in Red Hook, you would know the Mikio. It's like so hyper-local, our work. But a couple months ago, the operator that allows us to take SNAP payments, which is food stamps, at our farm stand, lost a no-bid contract and basically was going to go out of business, which meant all of the farm stands in New York City would no longer be able to take SNAP benefits.
Wow.
It was actually a panic. Like there are some farm stands where like that is how they're reaching people, and the USDA is the one who gave us the equipment in order to take the benefits. But the USDA was the one who had the no bid contract, and who was the new contractor? It's seeming like these tiny little decisions made at like what boardroom, what conference room in DC, and suddenly we're left holding the bag. And whatever, there's a temporary fix that actually New York State is fronting the money for, but come next year, we actually don't know if we're going to be able to take SNAP at farmers markets. So this is a tiny little farm stand, right? We get like, 60, 70 people come through on Wednesday afternoon. We have our young people growing. This is not Union Square Farmers Market, but the folks who come to the McHugh Community Center and the Senior Center that's right across, this is their new spot to get kimbombo, to get okra, to get same thing. And we are growing food that we know our neighbors like, and that they've asked for. We have to grow more long beans, I know next year, because there's a small Asian population that come through, they take the whole thing, And so what is our role in the food system, and how can we be hyper-local, but understanding this like national context? Another example of that and how we are not insulated, no matter how insular our neighborhood can feel. We do these awesome cooking demonstrations. Our young people are community chefs. We want people to try different vegetables. We've been working with the Department of Health. So we meet with all these other sites that are doing these awesome cooking demonstrations. And this year, a number of our colleagues who are working with clinics are saying no one's coming in. No one's coming to the cooking demos. And I'm like, why wouldn't they come to a cooking demo? Well, a lot of their populations are immigrants, and they don't want to access services. They're scared. So we're doing a cooking demonstration and showing a cool way to make eggplants, but we are inherently connected to the politics that are happening right now. And in being connected, we have to recognize that Red Hook is a part of the larger the borough, the city, the state, and national. And so we are one of the core organizing members of the Youth Food Justice Network. So this is a number of organizations around New York, including East North Farms, Friends of the Highline, Children's Aid Society. And what we are trying to do is connect our young people to their young people to these larger movements that are happening. We went to the Climate Justice March last year, down in DC and then up here in New York. And when they grow that vegetable, what does it mean? Does it connect? Why didn't their local supermarket reopen after Hurricane Sandy, which I'll get to because I know this is the Climate Action Lab and we have to tell our Sandy story. So it puts their work in a context, right? And it makes them feel not just connected to the land through the farm and their community, but it connects them to other groups in Philly, other groups in Connecticut. We go to conferences, and it makes them feel like they're part of something bigger, right? Which is huge. But I do have to tell the same story because we're at the Climate Action Lab. Oops. So we see the farm as an ecosystem. It is not just there for us to produce food. The farm is there as a piece of land that is performing all these different ecological services. It was a photo of butterflies. We plant Tithonia. It's not a good cut flower. You don't eat Tithonia. The monarchs love it. And so we think of all the different services to the environment that a farm can provide, and we try and support that, even if it doesn't make sense for growing food necessarily. And so in 2012, with Hurricane Sandy, the farm was washed away. It was inundated with 4 feet of water. And in rebuilding and thinking about resiliency, we partnered with the Department of Sanitation. They helped us raise the farm up 2 feet. So minor flooding we can handle in the future. But what did it look like for the rest of the neighborhood? Like I said, most of the young people we hire, most of the people we're trying to keep live in their houses. Our office is actually in an apartment that is not inhabitable, that we share with some other nonprofits in rental houses. So the mold, all the houses have mold. The temporary boilers are still there, temporarily boiling water. There's a seawall was built on one side of the neighborhood, and these giant straw bale type things were being placed around. And at the same time, like I said, there are luxury building after building and conversions that are happening, as well as landlords sitting on property, just sitting on property, because they're waiting for when it's going to be the most profitable to go. And we have community meetings and they make promises, but what does it mean to have a community that is, below sea level, should be like cheap housing because it's not safe, but it's not. It's not. And so what kind of privilege does it mean to be like, I am so wealthy that I can live in this apartment and know that I can just sleep there? The farm is a community space. The farm is a public space. We, like I said, we've grown what our community wants. But I was reading the description. I'm not gonna find it. I was reading the description of the Climate Action Lab, and I was like, whoa! And I read it out to some of the youth, and I read it out to some of the staff, and we were like, it's not wrong, but like, the farm is also a site of joy. And the young people that are working there, and in all weather, we are farmers. I know I'm wearing purple lipstick, but like, we are farmers. We're there in every kind of weather, harvesting, growing food, repairing beds, and it's joyful work. And if it wasn't joyful work, yesterday we were weeping in the weeds, but we were there, and it provided a space where I know some of our young people struggle in the classroom and don't feel valued in the school system, but they do on the farm, and they feel it's like a concrete way to do something, and to do something positive and engaging, and a life skill that will take no matter what career or professional they pursue. So I invite you all to the farm.